Guide Dog School and Training Experience tag.
This tag is called the Guide Dog Training. It's called the Guide Dog Training Experience. No. This tag is called the Guide Dog Training Experience and School.
Guide Dog School and Training Experience tag. Guide Dogs for the Blind, Nicole and Figaro.
This tag is called the Guide Dog School and Training Experience tag. Basically, this tag is all about my training at Guide Dogs for the Blind with my current guide dog, Figaro. What is the name of the guide dog school you attended? The guide dog school I attended is called Guide Dogs for the Blind. Number 2, where is it located? The organization has 2 campuses. The headquarters, which is also a training campus, is in San Rafael, California, and the secondary training campus is in Boring, Oregon. Number 3 is briefly describe your application process from start to finish, include dates if possible. My application process is a little bit different because my second guide dog and I had a very short partnership. GDB kind of facilitated that application process with me. They helped me to complete the application paperwork. I did the medical pieces, which are, I think there's a general form for medical information. There's an ophthalmology form. There's also a TB test required prior to you attending for training, since you're going to be living in a residential environment with other people. They also call and conduct a phone interview, and that might have been a little bit different as well since I had so recently worked with the school, but they do the home interview with everyone regardless. They also do an in-person interview where they do a Juno walk with the instructor. They try to make a really thorough evaluation of what your needs are, what your preferences are, and all of those things so that they can look forward for the match.
How many people are in a typical class at the school and how many classes graduate per year?
4, how many people are in a typical class and how many classes graduate each year? I'm not sure about this. I wonder if I can look this up quick. There are between 6 and 8 people per class on both campuses, I believe. What dog breeds are used by the school? Guide Dogs for the Blind works with Labrador Retrievers, Golden Retrievers, and Lab Golden Crosses. What did your training look like? Include details about duration and structure. My training was 2 weeks long. You arrive on a Sunday and you leave on a Saturday, so technically just under 2 weeks. During the training, the first day is really you getting acquainted with your environment. You do some basic coursework, but it's pretty minimal that day. And then the Monday after you arrive is dog day. So you'll meet your dog. And then on Monday, this was really cool. This was different from my previous experiences in training, but this time, Monday did not involve working the dog in harness. It just involved heeling the dog, doing some basic obedience work, and getting to know the dog once we had met. It was really nice, and it was nice to have kind of that transitional time to spend some time getting to know him and then begin our actual in harness team work the following day. So the remainder of the days, it really depends. You begin working as a team. You usually do 2 routes per day. And you are also paired with another student whose lifestyle is kind of similar to yours, or their living environment is similar to yours. So there's 2 students per instructor, and your instructor will basically alternate your routes. I would work with my instructor first and go on a route, and then the student who is paired with me would go on a route after I returned. Sometimes training takes place on campus, sometimes in a smaller town just near campus, so that it's a bit more residential and a little bit quieter. And then some of the training takes place in downtown Portland. The downtown Portland work will give the team more exposure to a large city, audible street crossings, larger street crossings, work with public transportation, and work within malls and a lot of the public and things like that. I kind of did this one already. Oops. Describe a typical day at the guide dog school. So a typical day is going to include getting up pretty early. I don't even remember. I think it's 7 a.m. I don't know. Sorry, GDB. I fail. You get up really early. So for younger people who maybe aren't used to that, it's something to get used to because your dog needs that care and routine right away in the morning. So you get up really early, feed, water, relieve your dog. Your relief times for your dog and watering and feeding are going to be on schedules so that you are developing that routine with your dog and you're avoiding any accidents when you're working as a team, and so that your dog is consistently comfortable and prepared to do their job. As you go about your day, you're going to get ready. You're going to go have breakfast. In the dormitory, there's a large dining room. The staff and volunteers will bring each student their plate, and you are able to choose from various meals for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner, depending on what they have on the meal plan. Then in the morning, you're going to do one route, and your classmate who's paired up with you is going to do one route with your instructor. And then typically you'll follow that up with lunch. And then after lunch, you're going to have an afternoon route. There are also lectures that are interspersed throughout the day. So oftentimes that'll be either right before lunch or sometimes even during lunch, depending on how the day is going and how much time you have. You're going to have an afternoon route. It also depends on travel time, right? Depending on where the class is being held, you will commute back to campus oftentimes. That time is pretty fun too. Sometimes it's just socializing with your classmates, and that's part of it as well. You get to know people and develop friendships throughout your training, and many of those friendships stay for a lifetime, and they're really special friendships because you've shared such a unique experience together. Typically, you'll have some downtime, you'll have dinner in the dormitory again, and you will have an evening class that is oftentimes led by the dormitory staff or a training staff member who's on that evening shift. Throughout the day, there are scheduled feeding, watering, or relieving times that you will take care of at various points. And that's going to depend on your activity and your schedule, but they are typically kept pretty consistent because part of what you're doing is developing a routine with this dog, and that routine is also going to facilitate the development of your relationship and your bond. Much like children, dogs thrive off of that consistent routine so that they know what's going to happen next, and they know what to expect, and they know that you are reliable and dependable. Another thing about the kind of typical day, mid-training, the Sunday in the middle of your training, you actually get the day off. So you have a day of rest and relaxation and just play. Training is pretty intense, and that down day on that Sunday in the middle of training is so welcome by the time you get there. You are so ready for it. So I'm glad that they include that in there, because as important as this consistent and constant, attention is to work and to developing your skills with your guide dog and to developing that teamwork, it is also just as important that you're taking care of yourself and that you and your dog both have some rest and recuperation times as well. In 3 words, describe your first meeting with your dog: excited, vulnerable, and powerful. When Figaro came in, he seemed very happy to meet me, and he very quickly rolled over on his back and asked me for a tummy rub. And they had kind of talked to us about that gradual development of relationship and not getting in our dog's, space and face and things like that until the dog kind of invited it. Clearly he had no real substantial personal bubble, because he immediately rolled over on his back and invited tummy rubs. Vulnerable and powerful because my second guide dog relationship had ended in a way that, isn't what we hope for. And when I went for training with Figaro, I still had some feelings of guilt and of sadness at the ending of that relationship, even though there was nothing that I could have done to prevent it. When I met Figaro, I had been waiting, and I had been developing this picture in my mind of what this was going to be like and who this partner was going to be, and were they going to make a perfect match again. I mean, their track record was phenomenal, so I didn't anticipate that it wouldn't be a perfect match, but my gosh, these people are better than Match.com. So you kind of wonder, what dog am I going to get? And there's a level of relief too, I think, when you hear their name and you've been hoping and praying that their name isn't Rufus or something. I don't know. Part of what you're trying to do is make sure that you come to this relationship with an open heart and a readiness to develop a partnership with this new dog. And that's where I was. It was a lot of different feelings. I was pretty vulnerable, and that moment was incredibly powerful. I felt like, you're this dog that I've been waiting to meet, and I feel confident that this is going to work, that we are going to explore the world together. I was really excited to start that next chapter with Figaro. What reinforcers are used, both positive and negative? In other words, how are the dogs rewarded and corrected? Guide Dogs for the Blind uses a number of different positive reinforcers. We use primary reinforcers with food. Initially, we use a consistent and very frequent schedule of reinforcing as we're developing that relationship and as we are developing a bond and working together. Gradually, we will move to a variable schedule so that the dog isn't always always expecting a reward. We also use secondary reinforcers of touch, verbal praise. I think those are the majority of our reinforcers. In terms of correction, we will, and this isn't really correction so much as keeping focus, but we will give a leash cue, and that just is a method of communication. It's not a correction. We do use brief timeouts, and what that is in a situation where the dog, let's say, is significantly distracted. Maybe a dog has passed and they've actually tried to veer off course because they're curious or whatever. We will stop abruptly, and no speaking, no vocal reinforcer, none of that. We focus the direction that we were trying to move, and we give the dog a 10-second period of refocusing. You just stand there, and you stand there silently, and that allows the dog to refocus, and you then attempt to get back to work. And then, if the dog responds and gets back onto course and back to its focus right away, you will stop and reward that behavior because it's gotten back on track and you're working positively again. Guide Dogs for the Blind also will teach a leash correction, and that's just a very quick pull and release of the leash. It interacts then with the martingale collar. So we have a martingale collar for most dogs. The martingale collar allows them to have both a tactile and audible indicator that they need to pay attention. Number 10 is what was the easiest part of training, and number 11 is what was the most difficult part of training. Easiest part of training for me, and this is consistent across working with each of my guide dogs, would be developing that bond and getting to know them. The most difficult part of training for me is super easy to tell you. It is being away from my family. I am married and I have 2 daughters, one aged now 12 and one age 4. And going away for 2 weeks is a long time in the world of a 3 or 4-year-old. So when I trained with Figaro, Evie was 4, but when I trained with Megan, Evie was 3, and it was really, really tough. So I wasn't sure how my training with Figaro was going to go with respect to my youngest daughter. We did a number of things to try to make that easier. We made a calendar, a visual calendar that had pictures of what I was going to be doing every day and what she was going to be doing so that she could cross off the days. She doesn't like to talk on the phone. She doesn't like to talk even on FaceTime for the most part. I think she had a better understanding and a better visual concept of when I would be back. And at the end of my training with Figaro, she came to my graduation. She and my husband came to my graduation, so she was able to look forward to, hey, we're going for a flight on a plane and we get to see mom and we get to meet Figaro. It definitely went better this time than it did when she was 3 and I was training with Megan. The last question 12, is what was your favorite or most memorable moment of training? Meeting Figaro. It was exciting, awesome, beautiful, intimate, and vulnerable, and amazing. And he is an absolute perfect fit. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tag, Guide Dog School and Training Experience tag. My thanks to Joy, who created this tag. I will link her channel below and her initial video. I will also link the website and some information about Guide Dogs for the Blind below in the description box. Just a quick end note, I will be reviewing several Roughwear products. That video will be released in the next week. All right, guys, I will talk to you soon.
Join us on our journey on Facebook, Chronicles of a Crafty Blind Chick, and This Guide's Life, Figaro's Adventures, and on Instagram at Crafty Blind Chick. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for joining us.